Hi there, and good evening, and welcome to the Jimbo Show from Westwood One Radio. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, and on the web. You'll find us at jimbotalk.net. Good to have you with us on the program tonight, as we have just started to wrap up Earth Day 2009, the 30th such commemoration since its founding by former Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson back there in 1970. I guess it was 1970, was it? This would be the 40th. This would be the 40th. 39th. Okay, 39th it is. But suffice it to say that we've had quite a few of these, with worldwide momentum certainly building at this time for greener living. And right now it would seem to be part of yet another great national debate, as the current administration and leadership in Congress seem intent on moving in that direction as well. The president is selling the American public and lawmakers on the notion of green jobs as one of the solutions to our environmental and economic woes. Critics say the president's going to be forcing us to go green against our will. So tonight we will be examining both sides of this aspect of Earth Day 2009, as we are joined in studio by Stephen Malloy. He's the author of Green Hell, How Environmentalists Plan to Ruin Your Life and What You Can Do to Stop Them, published by Regnery. We'll put you down as undecided, Stephen. And with us, he, by the way, is also the founder and publisher of the website junkscience.com. Sean Miller is the education director of the Earth Day Network. On the web, they are at earthday.net, a driving force in steering worldwide environmental awareness, promoting environmental citizenship and action. So I guess we'll start just with an overview. First of all, Sean Miller, are we advancing as quickly in the direction of being green as you would prefer?
It's tough to say in a sense, but on the other hand, CNN reported today that about 500 million people took some form of an action across the globe to celebrate in one way or another Earth Day. So it's pretty incredible here that with the 39th anniversary, moving from 20 million
people.
It is the
40th, by the way. When you start in 79, okay. This is the 40th. But suffice it to say.
With that, to move from 20 million people in 1970 to 500 million now, worldwide, almost 40 years, as you were saying later, it is incredible, and it is hard to measure though at the same time.
Yeah, it is. Are there any major gaps that you see out there? It seems every time we turn around that there's another move being taken in this direction or that direction. You may be surprised to learn. I'm not sure if either one of you are aware of this, but they have just tested out the pace car for the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR race coming up in North Carolina. It is a Hyundai hybrid. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a hybrid. I have to look up the exact name of the hybrid, but it is a hybrid car. It was just tested at 110 miles an hour, which may be at variance with the goals of being green. Stephen, I'm curious your take on the direction that we're going right now.
Well, I think Sean's being modest. I think we are hurtling towards greendom at ever-increasing speed since Barack Obama's was elected. That pace has only accelerated. We are on the verge of handing over our entire economy and the way we use energy to the green lobby. And there's nary a thought being given to what this actually means to America, to the environment, to individuals, to our way of life. And I think that one of the reasons I wrote Green Hell is to try to raise those issues.
Well, that's an interesting point to bring up. In fairness, I'll have to ask Sean Miller here. I would assume that even the most rabid environmentalist doesn't have as a goal reducing us all to some Stone Age existence, that the environmental movement is well aware of the benefits of things like vaccinations and other things that have put our lifespan up approaching some 80 years, and that you just can't get there without a certain level of industrialization.
Oh, we're not against any of that. We're just trying to make it more efficient. And one of the ways that we can do that is through things like solar power, because we're only indirectly getting our power sources right now through solar, through fossil fuels. So all that a pound of a lump of coal is just concentrated solar power. Why don't we get that directly from the sun is the question here that I'm trying to answer.
As a matter of fact, Pacific Gas and Electric is now undertaking a project under which they intend to do exactly that. They're going to work with a company, I think it's SolarN is the name of it, which is going to try to put up a satellite which will collect solar energy, beam it down to Earth, and obviously you won't get a huge amount from one satellite, but that's the goal ultimately, to do that.
Well, in one way or another, we all are solar powered. It's just a question of how indirect it is. I mean, the plant food I ate this morning came from photosynthesis from plants that then was consumed by me. And then, you know, I rode my bicycle here, so that's 1,000 miles per gallon if you want to know.
Outstanding.
Most efficient machine ever created, they say. I mean, I'm willing to debate that one.
All right.
But in one way or another, it is representing solar.
You say that this makes for better efficiency. How do you define efficiency?
Sure. We live in a closed feedback loop here on planet Earth where really the only external energy source is coming from the sun's power. Thus, that's entering into various global systems here, and that's what commonly we would call climate. And, you know, there's the water cycle and, you know, the carbon cycle and these things we hear about in the news. But that's making those systems more efficient for human use. The way humans use them is how I would define that.
And how would you define efficiency in this context, Steve?
Well, I think efficiency is a fine goal on a personal level, but I think as a societal matter, it's way overblown, way oversold. Over the last 30 years, in terms of energy, we've only become 6 or 7% more efficient, which is probably quite different than what most people think. The Greens want us to become 20 to 30% more efficient in the future. I don't really see how it's possible. There's no track record for that. And I don't really think that we should be focusing on efficiency. I think we need to be focusing on developing more of our energy resources. You know, there's plenty of energy out there, virtually an unlimited world, but the green solution is always use less, conserve, let's ration it. And I think that's going to reduce our lifestyle and actually is worse for the environment.
Although, of course, if we do, in fact, actually start to tap into the sunlight that falls on planet Earth, which every day, of course, dumps hundreds of thousands of times more power than mankind can use, if we were ever to tap into that, we would have it all. We would have tons of energy we didn't know what to do with. Everybody would have an electric-powered toothbrush, and there would be presumably no environmental cost. Is that such a bad direction in which to go?
No, but you know, let's use that technology when we get there. Right now, even if that technology existed, the sun's only up for part of the day, and it's cloudy or rainy.
No.
Because you can't save the electricity.
Actually, of course, the sun is up all the time, and these satellites, I assume, would be placed around the globe.
Yeah, but do you know how much electricity we use? Come on, let's.
No, trust me. Steve, the amount of sunlight that falls on this planet every day that we don't use, I mean, it is thousands and thousands. Please, but apparently, Sean has the stat here, but trust me, it is more than we could imagine using.
We've got to live in the real world.
7 minutes. Let me say the stat. For 7 minutes of solar sunlight hitting the Earth, that's enough energy that all of mankind consumes in an entire year.
That does not surprise me. That would be
7 minutes.
That would be about right. Of course, obviously, we're not going to blanket the sky with enough satellites to do that. But that is a technology. I mean, we know how to put satellites in orbit. We know how to build solar collection equipment. I mean, that's doable. That's not a new technology.
We've got to live in the real world. The real world is we demand energy now. We have ever-growing needs. We can feed them right now with coal, natural gas, oil, nuclear power, which is emission-free. The Greens oppose it. Solar and wind are very Solar and wind are a very small part of our energy portfolio, not growing anytime fast. And the faster we push it, the worse it's going to be for us, because those technologies are just not ready for prime time. They're not economical. They require taxpayer subsidies. They just don't work right now.
Let me ask you about that.
The coal industry, the nukes, they all require taxpayer subsidies right now as well. So it's just a question of redirecting that funding into initiatives that would equal or maximize.
Coal-powered, I don't know what percentage of our electricity
52%.
comes from coal. And why would it require subsidies?
Because it's externalizing the costs onto the consumer or the environment here, where the brunt of the cost isn't being borne by the consumer. And what we're talking about here in the federal climate bill is kind of redirecting those costs where it would shift what Steve was saying.
In other words, you're talking about indirect costs.
Yes.
In other words, when we burn coal, for example, we are not including in the cost of the burning of the coal, let's say, the cost of fixing the structures that are weakened by the acid rain that results. Is that what you're saying?
Or the rivers that are polluted, or the mountains.
Of course, we don't have any of that anymore, at least in the United States, because if we have regulated acid rain, the CO2, the SO2 emissions that come out of the smokestacks, so that's not a problem here. So there's no externalized costs. As a matter of fact, those costs are being paid by electric rate consumers.
Tell that to people in West Virginia. Tell that to people in Kentucky. Tell that to people in Tennessee.
Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, here, but have we not, through the scrubbers and the clean technology that's been applied to the coal burning industry, have we not minimized but not eliminated the problems of acid rain? I wasn't aware that there was any coal burning that was perfectly free of such emissions. It's just greatly reduced.
I'm not aware of acid rain being a problem anywhere. As a matter of fact,
it is increasing, actually.
In 1990, last time the Bush administration did an analysis of this, acid rain was not a problem. The acidification of the lakes in the Northeast was natural. We've got all these environmental myths built into our culture now that people just, acid rain, ozone.
Let me ask Sean about this. If you're saying that the effect of acid rain is, quote, increasing even despite all of this clean technology that we've...
From the United States to Sweden as well as the oceans.
How do you measure this effect?
It's called the acidification process in the oceans, and you measure it by the pH level of the actual water. So water's about 7 on the pH scale, and we're seeing it go further towards the acidic side here slowly. We see that evidence in coral reefs becoming bleached.
Are we seeing that evidence in, I guess I'm more concerned about whether or not bridges are being weakened and this sort of thing. Are we seeing that problem? I mean, I don't know.
That's tough to say. I think that's being assessed right now as we evaluate the D rating that we got in our transportation sector here in the United States. As, bridges
D by whom? Who issued the rating?
Department of Transportation. This is why we're talking about
and they issued a D
for the overall infrastructure of the United States, be it levees, bridges.
It's not because of environmental.
Well, I'm sure the infrastructure needs to be repaired. We know that.
That's because it gets used.
All right, more to come. We will take a quick break and be back with more as we continue our debate about Earth Day and, of course, the whole green movement with Steve Malloy and Sean Miller. 1-866-50-JIMBO on the Jimbo Hannon Show, which is being brought to you by LendingTree.com, where you can choose up to 4 customized loan offers. 1-800-555-TREE. When banks compete, you win at LendingTree.com. We'll be back here at Westwood One. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show. We're taking a look at Earth Day from the perspective of the great debate that never seems to quite go away. Steve Malloy is with us in the studio, the author of Green Hell. It's published by Regnery, and he is also the founder and publisher of the JunkScience.com website. And with us as well is Sean Miller, the education director of Earth Day Network. They're on the web at earthday.net. And we are at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. We'd love to hear where you stand on all of this as well. At, I guess, the core of all of this discussion would have to be the notion of whether or not we are, in fact, creating more of a greenhouse effect by our carbon dioxide emissions. And so we might as well go to the base issue. Sean Miller, I take it you consider this an article of faith, right?
Reason.
Of reason, okay.
Reason, scientific reason, not faith, in the sense that the largest scientific investigation in history has determined unequivocally, that's the quote, unequivocally, that the Earth is warming, and it's warming because of human-caused actions, mainly the burning of fossil fuels, and that body is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's been investigating this topic for over 20 years, with over 2,000 of the world's top scientists examining this issue to determine whether or not we are the cause of the warming that's resulting.
Steve Moy, there seems little question that carbon dioxide produces a greenhouse effect and that we produce carbon dioxide. I would think that the principal issue here would be whether or not you can ascribe significant changes in the climate to man-made effect. But to deny the impact of carbon dioxide strikes me as pretty shaky ground.
Well, no one denies that carbon dioxide has a greenhouse effect. The question is, do human emissions drive global climate? And the larger question is, does carbon dioxide really drive global climate? You know, if you go back to the ice core record, 650,000 years, higher temperatures actually precede increases in carbon dioxide by hundreds of years. If you look at the 20th century, look at the record of CO2 emissions versus temperature, there's no correlation. Over the last 10 years, temperatures have been falling since 1998. CO2 emissions keep going up. The notion that humans are driving climate through carbon dioxide emissions has just no scientific foundation.
We can simply just measure the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and they've been doing it at the University of Hawaii since 1950, and they found since then that there's been 346 parts per million amount of CO2. That was 1950. Now there's almost 390 parts per million. That's just a simple, basic statistical analysis to show that there's more carbon in the atmosphere. And
but that doesn't show that it's driving climate.
The question here that I think we might want to address in this regard would be this. Do we have an adequate understanding of the cycles that the Earth goes through? I note, for example, the accurate temperature readings, which I can't believe are more than maybe 150 years old. And you're talking about little ice ages and the like. We're talking about events measured in terms of millennia at the least. Can we really, based on the objective data that we've collected in that last century and a half or whatever it is, really say that while we may be making things warmer, that it's enough to counteract whatever cycles the Earth goes through anyway?
No, we can. We can look at back about 1 million years through tree rings or ice cores or measuring fossils or, you know.
You can't look through tree rings.
Oh.
There aren't enough.
I think that's, you can look at a tree ring and see the, age of the tree and measure it that way. It's pretty
You're talking, I assume, presumably you're talking about fossilized tree rings of trees that were here.
You can see the growth, but you can't tell what the, there's more factors than carbon dioxide.
That's a basic fundamental belief and understanding that you can measure carbon through looking at tree rings. I implore our listeners to just look that up.
That's not true.
Look it up for yourself and be the judge. And since the industrial age, we've really gone off this level where I was saying we've moved from about 340, 350 parts per million up to 390 now, where the IPCC is estimating we're going to go above 400 into about 450 and level off there at parts per million. And that's going to
Why would we be leveling off, just as a matter of curiosity?
The population. Between 8 and 12 billion people, thus you can determine an estimate on economic...
Assuming the Earth's population does in fact level off, I know that's a projection.
That's basic Malthus from 1798.
The ice cores
was wrong in a lot of things, but I defer.
He was, but that is what we base population theory on.
The ice cores show exactly the opposite of what you're claiming. Temperature increases before carbon dioxide in the ice cores. The climate models that the UN and Al Gore rely on, they're so primitive they don't even include the effects of clouds or the sun. We're going into a solar cycle where solar activity is on the decline. We don't know the impact of that. None of the climate models include that. No global warming alarmist has ever successfully predicted weather, climate. We can't predict hurricane season.
Well, here we go. You're going to have me predict the weather.
We're going to base
predicting weather day to day and large climate changes are not the same.
Well, no, we're going to predict. If we can't predict a hurricane season, we're going to predict climate for the next 100 years and then base national policy on that. That's insane.
I don't know that the two are necessarily directly related.
They don't. Weather is the day-to-day activity. Climate is year to year over millennia weather patterns.
Right. If you don't know what's going to happen in the next 24 hours, how do you know what's going to happen in the next 100 years?
That's illogical.
Well, not necessarily, but unfortunately we must pause, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. We'd love to hear your take on all of this activity. and see if you, in fact, observed Earth Day in any particular way today yourself. And so we talked to our two guests in studio, Sean Miller, Director of Education for Earth Day, the Earth Day Network. They're on the web at earthday.net. Sean Malloy is the founder of the junkscience.com website and the author of the book Green Hell. It's published by Regnery.
Steve Malloy.
Did I say that again? I did. I said it. It is Steve Malloy, Sean Miller. I knew I was going to do that. Thank you. Now then, why don't we start with some of the accusations you make in your book, Steve, and we'll let Sean respond to that. But you go after the motivations of the environmental movement, and you accuse them basically of trying to take us out of our cars and destroy our way of life. I don't think I've overstated your case any.
Oh, no. I think the environmentalists want to tell you where to live, where you can work, how many children you can have, how much energy you can use, how much water you can have, what sort of diet you should have. Even something as personal as what kind of toilet paper you should use. You know, California is right now in the process of regulating the color of the car we can have. I don't think that anything that they want to do at this moment, particularly that's related to global warming, has anything to do with the environment. I think it has everything to do with their left-wing social and political agenda. They want to, they want the government to regulate virtually every aspect of our lives, preferably with fewer people. You know, a couple weeks ago, an advisor to the UK government came out and said, half of the British population just has to go away.
I don't think they were really speaking of setting up gas ovens a la Auschwitz.
No, but that's a pretty bizarre thought to have. And then when you consider that Barack Obama's top science advisor is a guy named John Holdren, who goes back 40 years with Paul Ehrlich. Paul Ehrlich, who in 1968 wrote that the government should put a sterilizant in the drinking water, and then if you want to have children, you can apply for the antidote from the government. I mean, he's
the day that this is remotely proposed as a federal policy.
Well,
is the day I'll even be the slightest bit worried about that.
Well, this stuff all works its way into public policy in way, shape, or form.
Let's not go off the deep end and say it works its way into public policy. When I hear an official declaration of policy that we're going to start putting sterility causing compounds in our drinking water.
These are their words, not mine. Why are they talking like this? It's not necessary.
When I hear that from the President of the United States, I'll start getting a little more concerned.
Last year on the campaign trail, he said, we can't keep our homes at 72 degrees. We can't drive our SUVs.
Now we're changing topics here.
No, this is all the same thing.
It is not the same thing.
We can't eat as much food as we want and just the rest of the world.
However, recognizing that we do face certain limits is not necessarily a sign of idiocy.
Well, who's going to decide those limits?
Well, we'll get to that in just a minute here. We'll presumably elected officials will in part do so, but let's get some response. But before we even go to Sean Miller here, could it, even if you disagree with the tactics that you see being used by the left here, could you not perhaps at least impute to them some motives of trying to make this a better place in which to live?
No, absolutely not.
Just to finish the question before you give me the answer, could it not possibly be that they are really just trying to make the world a better place in their own, from your viewpoint, misguided way?
I think some of them are like that. I think you've got nature worshipers, you've got, I think, well-intentioned people that are misguided, you've got profiteers, and then I think you've got the people with the social and political agenda. All right,
so let's let Sean Miller respond.
Well, the one just basic inaccuracy I heard was that we're trying to make you, I think it was, choose your toilet paper. We're actually trying to make you use both sides. So, who
was the singer who was rincing out her
Crow?
Sheryl Crow,
one
right?
sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One sheet.
No, this is typical.
My turn to talk here.
My turn to talk. This is typical of what we call the watermelon theorists, that people propose that greens are green on the outside but actually red on the inside, and that's simply not true. Greening represents the opportunity to really lift all boats. What you were getting at, Jim, where we can help people become lifted out of poverty. We can help better the economy, and the solutions that exist now, unlike what was purported earlier in the interview. We can have solar power in this country. We can have wind power, geothermal, hydropower, and these opportunities exist. They can create jobs. They're here right now, and we are trying to help make the better place for everybody, because opportunities can exist for everyone to coexist with the environment in a better way than it has been. And that's part of the message of Earth Day, and we're still learning that process. There's going to be hiccups, but we're here to implement that further movement.
All right, headphones each, please. We have people who have called in who would like to speak with you. Again, Sean Miller is with earthday.net, and Steve Malloy is with the junkscience.com website and author of the book Green Hell. Let's go to Doug in Arcata, California. Good evening, Doug.
Yeah, hey, thank you, Jim. Hey, my question's for Mr. Miller. I'm wondering, you made a statement that carbon dioxide has, since studied in Hawaii in 1950, gone from 343 parts per million to 390 parts per million. That's about 0.0343% to 0.039%. If there is such a simplistic linear relationship between global warming and the rise in carbon dioxide, then I'd like to hear your simplistic scientific explanation of how carbon dioxide functions as a greenhouse gas that retains the heat of the Earth's atmosphere.
We just simply have to look at the planet Venus to see the carbon dioxide cycle run amok.
Well, even a moment ago, Steve himself conceded that there is a greenhouse effect connected with the gas carbon dioxide. So that's
very small, very small. Very small, and none in the in tropical regions, maybe in the polar region, are very small because there's no water vapor.
That's not true, and especially in the
planet
Arctic
Venus,
regions.
quite frankly, is worth looking at because
it's 99% CO2.
Well, exactly. It is very heavily, but the impact nonetheless is there. But anyway, go ahead, John.
Venus represents the greenhouse gas run amok. Now, something like that is not going to happen here on Earth. But what it does represent is...
Why talk about it?
Well, because the caller asked about it.
Talk about me going off the deep end. How about that? Come on.
The caller brought it up.
The greenhouse effect is a simple, basic understanding that we all get sometime in elementary or middle school. And the result of it is it's like putting a blanket on the planet. And as you put a thicker blanket on the planet, it's slowly going to get warmer. It's just like being in bed or being, in your reading chair at night. The more blanket you put on, the warmer you're going to get. The simple understanding exists with the planet. So to the caller, I implore you to investigate the IPCC's reports to find that they are unequivocal in their research findings of over 2,000 scientists.
And for those who aren't into this, the IPCC
Sorry, I did say earlier, I apologize, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is from the UN and the World Meteorological Organization.
And you'll learn that the more CO2 there is in the atmosphere, the less of a warming effect it has, even in areas where it has an effect.
That's simply not the case.
That is the case. That is basic science. That is basic meteorology. And even the IPCC buys into that.
They have won the Nobel Prize based on that assumption
they won the Nobel Peace Prize.
You're saying... I gather
Peace Prize.
You're saying that it has a diminishing effect,
logarithmic effect.
But nonetheless, every bit of extra carbon dioxide does cause an increase. It just causes less of an increase.
Yes, but very small. The first several hundred parts per million of CO2 are very important. After that, it's very, very, very diminishing.
This just simply is basic fourth grade science.
We'll put this down as an agreement to disagree here. Okay. Very good. Okay, did that answer your questions there, Dougie?
Well, I don't think so. I think he had a displacement to Venus, and
well, that is a greenhouse gas effect run amok, and it is. I mean, as he said, that will not be happening on Earth, but it is certainly an example of the greenhouse effect. Now, I've never heard anybody question the fact, except maybe for Steve here, the idea that in fact you get a greenhouse effect from carbon dioxide. That's not an issue.
No, you do, but it's not everywhere on the planet.
No, you do. You do.
No,
you get a greenhouse effect.
It's all water vapor because there's so much water vapor it just blots out the effect of carbon dioxide.
But there is a greenhouse effect from carbon dioxide.
How do you know it's not measurable? It's not measurable.
It is measurable.
No, it's not.
Well, anyway,
you can't just say that isn't.
That's the best answer you're going to get there, Doug. All right, to Bob in Mansfield, Ohio. Good evening.
The Israelis have been able to suppress the evaporation from open water reservoirs by as much as 30% with a thin coating of peanut oil on them. Recently, there's been a program on the media about concentrated pollutions in the ocean, and I would guess there's much wider areas of the ocean with the pollutant on the surface that's affecting the evaporation rate. You couldn't go into a ice age without the generous evaporation of the oceans, for example. Is this missing from their computer calculations?
I wouldn't know. I'm not even sure to whom this is addressed, but I'll let them both respond to it.
Well, the global climate models are based on the assumption that more CO2 causes more warming, and then they have some feedback mechanisms. They're not really very sophisticated models. They certainly don't include the effect you're talking about. They don't include clouds. They don't include the sun. They're very primitive and are sort of self-validating.
Not including the sun. Do you remember earlier that everything is powered by the sun?
Well, it is. That's true.
Yeah, and we've had unparalleled progress since we broke away from that, started burning coal and oil and natural gas and nuclear power.
Again,
if you just go back to solar power, we're going to be nowhere.
Tell that to communities that have been blown up in West Virginia. Tell that to communities in Tennessee. Tell that to communities in Kentucky. We've had progress in blowing up their backyard communities.
We've had progress.
Yeah, we've had societal progress, of course.
We've created an industrial society, and it has come with some costs.
Right.
And we're now on the edge of what could be an era in which we might be actually able to have our cake and eat it too.
Exactly, and that's what we're here to talk about, is how do we get to that point where we all can benefit from a sustainable world.
No, we're talking about forcing technologies that are not ready for prime time on us. You know, your satellite technology is not ready for prime time.
Actually, there's no reason why that couldn't operate today, except that we just don't have the willingness to spend the money to do it.
Even our first green president is not talking about that.
Well, it would require a monumental amount of investment.
Just to go on that assertion for a second.
Project, right?
Just to go on that assertion for a second, we don't need to have satellites in space to accomplish our energy needs. Just to stick with the solar option, it would take 96 square miles out in either the California or Arizona desert to power this country. We have that technology.
Well, I beg to differ. General Electric has said it would take 7% of the landmass of Arizona. I once calculated this out. That would be $16 trillion just in solar panels. Forget about the land acquisition, the maintenance. How would you do all this? You know, the Bureau of Land Management last year placed a moratorium on solar projects on public lands because they're worried about the construction effects on
quick answer, and then we will take a break.
That's because he's coming as a funded lobbyist with the American Mining Association.
I'm not a lobbyist for anybody. Take that back.
No, the Senate Joint Filing Committee has his name on record.
I have never lobbied anybody.
That we will open after we...
Beginner takes it on. And how will it end? What will John McCain do next?
Though it's so that your votes were low,
you got to show some get up and go.
Maybe you should try dancing, give your wife a tip.
But I might break my hip.
John McCain, we just cannot lie.
You don't seem like a real smooth guy.
Come on, get your groove on, show folks you can dance.
Get me an ambulance.
But you must take a chance. Come on and dance, McCain. Dance, McCain, work it through the pain. Though we've seen you've been beat like a tambourine, oh yeah.
Hey, look at me, I'm alive, doing the foxtrottish jive. Just like Brittany.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Oh, you guys are great.
How long before we see John McCain on Dancing with the Stars?
Well, it can only be a brief period of time. Oh, my goodness, that's funny stuff. Now, what's the process that you guys go through there? I mean, I'm sure you must have a great library of the lyrics and music to every pop tune in the last half century.
Well, we try to anticipate everything, but, you know, I remember the day that Sarah Palin was announced as the vice presidential choice, and it was in August, and we had to Google her right along with everybody else before we could write any jokes about her at all. We didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
I mean, we had all the Mitt Romney songs you could want. We had all, you know, that's who they thought it was going to be. And, so the process is you kind of go and you think, well, what do people know about her? Well, they know that she's from Alaska. So the first thing we did was jokes about, oh, gosh, I worry about people, protecting the mortgages on their igloos. That was her whole, we didn't know. What do you know about Alaska? So then, of course, it came out that she was a beauty queen and a lot of things rhyme with Palin. And so there you have it.
Yeah, it started to write itself.
Right, it takes a while. It takes a while, but soon you get the handle on it.
How collaborative is the effort? I mean, do you all just sit around a table and just brainstorm, or I mean, like you're one of the senior steps
well,
here. I don't mean that, of course, in the chronological sense.
There's no smoke-filled room. It's basically emails.
Okay.
Isn't that disillusioning? I know you picture us chomping on cigars and writing these lyrics.
It would be really add to the charm of the group, I think. But so a lot of emails back and forth, this sort of thing.
And then, of course, things are sort of spontaneous combustion. I remember we were trying to think of a song about how, okay, Hillary has got to give up her dream of being president and grit her teeth and work with Barack. So we had originally written a song called Ebony and Ivory, but we changed it to Ebony and Ovaries at the suggestion of one cast member. So that was kind of spontaneous combustion backstage when somebody suggested that.
That's marvelous. Yeah. That's marvelous stuff. Have you ever gone over the edge? Have you ever put out a song that in retrospect, or maybe even at the very instant that you first heard the groans from the audience, you said, I think we just stepped in it here?
It's funny you should mention this, because just this past weekend I tried dressing one of our finer looking gentlemen in the group up as the Scottish woman on YouTube, the one who's everybody's sending to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody wanted to see her made fun of. It was almost as if we had made fun of the captain who landed the plane on the Hudson or something. You could, I sent this guy out a dress. We thought it was hysterical. I dreamed a dream, but apparently she's some kind of folk hero, and she's not funny yet. Maybe she will be funny.
Maybe she will be. So
yeah.
you can't be, in other words, what I think I hear you saying is you can't be ahead of the audience.
That's right. That's probably true. That's probably true. And we wondered we just did a new pirate song. We thought, can we, Somali pirates, ever going to be funny? And I guess they are, because the Navy SEALs, Navy SEALs 1, Pirates 0 is the, the kind of joke. But we did, we are the world. Because pirates, let's face it, pirates are just funny.
They are funny. Yeah. Arr. Okay, well, anyway, we're going to come back and talk some more with Elena Newport, founding member of the Capitol Steps, their website, capsteps.com. They put out 29 CDs, and I don't know that I'm missing any of them. I think I have the entire set.
They're holding up many tables in your house.
Oh, no, au contraire. No, a lot of them have been worn down to the nub. But I'm just glad this is not the age of vinyl, or there would be nothing left in the grooves. More to come, including selections from their latest CD, Obama Mia, on the Jimbo Show. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, and we'll be right back.
Hello, we represent the big three auto manufacturers. Hey, wait a minute, where's GM?
Sorry, my car broke down.
You should have borrowed my jet.
Anyway, we're here tonight to appeal directly to you, the voters, to pay for our bailout. Now, we know it sounds expensive. You may even have sticker shock, but come on into my office. I'm going to sit down and work this out on my calculator, and I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised with the price I come up with.
What's that? Still too high? Well, let me get back with the manager, see what we can do. But I gotta warn you, right now we're not making any money on the deal.
I tell you, you're killing us here. What is it going to take to put you in this bailout? How about if I throw in free undercoating and extended warranty, which you're going to need because this thing's going to break down in about 4 months.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't walk away. Take it for a drive.
No, they're leaving. You know what this means.
Well, if we cannot find any suckers who will bail us out, the future of the U.S. automakers will be in doubt.
Our cars are all dinosaurs, and the Japanese know so much more.
You gotta help us, Honda, help us get up off of the floor.
Bow, 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 bow. Help me, Honda, help me, Honda.
Hey, Isuzu, we're gonna schmooze you.
Help me, Mazda, help me, Mazda.
Mitsubishi, please buy a piece of me.
Hey, Toyota, help us Toyota.
Subaru, our cars suck without you. Help me, Honda, yeah.
Or we're gonna be poor.
Taxpayers, just think of the possibilities. Well, if we get help from the Japanese, we can merge our models with theirs.
That's right. We could merge the Ford Edge with the Toyota Tercel, and we get the Ford Edsel.
Or we could combine the Mazda MPV with the Mercury Comet to create the Vomit.
Hey, to save the industry, we'll merge the Nissan Titan with the Cadillac to create the Titanic.
Those are great ideas.
Of course, we'd have to stop capitulating to our unions, and our pay would be that of Japanese executives.
That's just crazy talk. Let's stick to the original plan.
Bow, 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 bow. Help us, Congress, help us, Congress.
Help us, Congress, help us, Congress.
First payment of $200 billion.
Let's take delivery before 1909.
Terms are 1.79% and 0% financing the first 2 months, and right-leg and first-born mail job for the next 10 months due at signing.
Help us, Congress, please.
Like you helped AIG.
Oh, yeah, from the Capitol Steps, new CD, Obama Mia. How bipartisan do you feel necessary to be? I mean, obviously, whoever's in power is much easier to hit.
Yeah, the party in power is always funnier, and we were kind of worried. During the Bush years, we actually had trouble finding a funny Democrat. Now we're kind of worried about finding funny Republicans, but we always look as hard as we can, and somebody always comes through for us.
Well, of course, there's nothing wrong with golden oldies either. I'm sure at some point later on we'll have to play George Bush, A Time for Refraction. At some point we'll have to play that.
Yeah, and we actually have a song I'd love to play,
yes.
which is Barack Obama asking George Bush for advice. It's called Barackberry.
Barackberry?
Yeah, it's number 9.
It is.
Number 8 on the CD.
Yes. Well, we'll get to that a bit later on here in the program. At the Capitol Steps now, in addition to the CDs that you put out, and of course you have Friday and Saturday evenings you appear at the Reagan International Trade Center.
That's right. Every Friday and Saturday we're down at the Ronald Reagan Building, which is right near the White House in Washington D.C.
Exactly.
And in fact, we can almost see the source of our material from the front of the show.
Yeah, you actually could. It's not that far away at all.
We send psychic messages to them.
And you travel.
We do.
You go out on the road.
We've been to every state now. It's all over our website, capitalsteps.com, but we've been to every state, and the last state that we got to was Wyoming, and we think Dick Cheney had something to do with keeping us out for a while.
Well, it's never too late. Now, you also appeared, was it on Broadway or off Broadway?
It was definitely off.
Definitely off, okay. It was in the same zip code as Broadway.
Well, I guess, we were at the Houseman Theater on 42nd Street several summers, and this summer we're going to the Berkshires. We're doing a show all summer for 9 weeks at a resort in the Berkshires, the Cranwell Resort. So,
when you do your stuff in public, you always try to make it as visual as possible, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You see our show. There's certain things that we do, like when we have Kim Jong-il in the show, we have you remember the old Tim Conway body shortening prop that he used to use in the Carol Burnett show?
Of course, exactly. Dorf the golfer, exactly.
Yeah, right. So, and of course, when we play the Octomom in our show, we have the enormous lips, and we have the 8 babies all in her arms, and screaming, and she's giving birth on stage. So, I mean, there are things you can't really see on the album.
Is there anyone that you really miss right about now? You've covered a swath of American history. In retrospect, is there any one person that you just wish you could do one more time?
Well, we're really sort of hoping Sarah Palin runs for president next time around, because who could have made this character up? Gun-toting beauty queen.
The things that comes along with her, obviously, she has obviously a colorful family and entourage.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. She tried to. Actually, I think the Octomom was actually trying to compete with Sarah Palin. So
you never know. Could fill out the ticket. I mean, let's face it. Her children alone could carry a close state.
That would be enough. I mean, that's most of Wasilla, right?
Exactly. I mean, just got to wait 21 years till they can all vote, or 18, and you're in. All right, more to come here with the Capitol Steps being featured on the program tonight. We love to have these folks on, and tonight the co-founder of the Steps, Elena Newport, has come with us to bring us a new CD, Obama Mia. And just go to the website, capsteps.com. You can get the CDs. You can book them for appearances and the like. They will do basketball halftimes, bar mitzvahs, you name it. More to come here on the Bohannon Show. 1-866-50-JIMBO is the number. Stay with us.
Subprime mortgage holders were so happy. Subprime rates so low, they made you high. Though unemployed, they closed my deal real snappy. My son co-signed the loan. He's only 5. My mortgage broker said, I'll see you later. Then he went into hiding, yes, but where? He is the campaign spokesman for Ralph Nader. He figured not a soul would see him there. My subprime's in foreclosure, banks revile me. Is there someone who'll take care of me? Since I've no place to live, I'm hoping I'll be adopted by Angelina Jolie.
Good.
That is the capital step solution for the whole housing crisis.
I love it. I mean,
we could all be adopted.
We could all be adopted. Oh, I just, hello. Yeah, just so long as Angelina breastfeeds me.
Are you allowed to say that on the air? Wow.
I think I just did. Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, it's a new era in radio. Anyway, Obama Mia is the name of their new CD there. You have, we were talking during the break, and I said, how many people have been a member of the Capitol Steps in their 29 years of existence? And you said you figured about 50?
I think so. People come and go. People actually mostly come because people don't leave too soon. Like, a lot of people stay around for years and years and years. And like, we still notice they're with us 20 years later and that sort of thing. But,
you have expansion steps, don't you? Now, I mean, for example, the steps can be performing at 2 or 3 events at one time, right?
We actually can. We have 4 casks, but they're not. It's kind of a big blob of performers, and we mix it up, and you do shows with different people, different nights, and that keeps life full of surprises because you never know exactly what somebody's going to come out with.
Are they full-time steps? I mean, or some of you are full-time, but I would imagine there are a few folks there who are just really good performers who show up long enough to rehearse and learn a song, but they aren't necessarily a part of the day-to-day activity, right?
Yeah, we have one step who still works on the Hill. She's clinging to her day job. She works for the Senate Commerce Committee, and she actually has a master's in voice, too, if you can imagine that combination. So, but everybody else is full-time.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They sort of started to notice we weren't showing up at our day jobs most days, that we were kind of
After a while,
traveling
even
around.
the federal government will notice.
Even if you're a senator, you can get away with it for sure, but we were just staffers.
What's the strangest gig you guys ever worked? I mean, I joked about basketball halftimes and bar mitzvahs, but then again, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we in Washington, there's an association for everything. I'm sure you know there's even an association of associations.
There is I have interviewed the people of the Association of Associations. Yes, ma'am.
And we did a show for the Seventh-day Adventist dentists once.
The Seventh-day Adventist dentists. This is not a joke.
No, and there's the Fastener Institute. There's the Meat Institute. With people who do we did corrugated cardboard people.
The corrugated cardboard.
So I mean, but God bless them all. They've got to have an association.
It is amazing reading. Seriously, folks, if you go through the white pages of the Washington D.C. phone book and you just look under 3 listings: National, American, and association. If you look under those three, and then probably a few listings otherwise under institute or a few other headings like that, but it is remarkable. Everybody who's anybody is here, and they can provide sometimes not only grist for the satirizing mill, but also great audiences as well. How much would it cost to hire the steps?
Oh, it ranges, but here in D.C. we're about $9,500.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
But hey, after all, you get it. You get a pretty good.
We'll go on and on and on for that. We'll go on as long as you want.
Now, the process. We talked about the creative process here, but once you've decided that we're going to satirize so and so. What, do you find an appropriate song that will go along with this?
Yeah, it kind of works both ways. Sometimes you're just looking for, okay, what rhymes with Kucinich or whatever, you know.
Yes.
And other times sometimes I'm reading a magazine article. I remember I was reading an article about, you had environmentalists on in your last hour. And I was reading an article about people who are something like omnilocadecavagivores, which they only eat like food that has died of natural causes 50 feet of their house.
Roadkill, exactly.
And this was actually an article, and I remember I just thought, okay, I got to do a song about this because it's just too silly. I mean, environmentalists, anybody who goes too far to one end or the other is, to me, I'm a raging moderate. So anybody who goes too far to one extreme or the other is funny.
Yeah.
So we wrote a song called "It's Not Easy Being Green," and it was based on just reading an article one day and thinking, well, this is silly.
Now, there are some people, I'm sure, that will just jump out at you, and you will either have a group session or a conference call, and you will say, we've got to do a song on him/her/it. Does anybody have any ideas? Because he's really tough. We can't get an angle. Have you ever had someone who was just, you knew you had to do something, but danged if you could figure out what it was going to be?
Oh, sure. That's very true during primary season, because you got all these guys running around, and you have to have one thing that you know about the person to hang a joke on. You have to have one thing So, like, for example, you take we had Mike Huckabee running around, and the only thing people knew was he was a Baptist minister. So we went over the top with the Reverend and the to let it be Huckabee, but sometimes you just desperate for one thing that everybody knows.
Yeah, and that's the key, of course. I mean, you can have a devastating satire, but if in fact the audience isn't aware of that aspect of the person, then nothing.
Well, and I think at the time, too, I took Mitt Romney and I did Help Me Fake It to the Right, because to me, he was a moderate who was trying to run to the right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we were, if the audience all knew that or not.
Well, of course, here in D.C., you tend to have a pretty sophisticated audience.
Yeah, but even here in D.C. at our Reagan Building shows, a lot of them are tourists. A lot of people have come in. So, we kind of keep it to the front pages and,
More to come as we talk tonight with Elena Newport, one of the founding members of the Capitol Steps, and their latest CD is out, Obama Mia, and more selections from same forthcoming here on the Jimbo Hannon Show. Bayer Advanced, innovative lawn and garden solutions. Bayer Advanced, better science, better results. Back after these messages.
Good evening. I am Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, and I am here tonight to honor myself. As you're undoubtedly aware, I was appointed to the position of Prime Minister by my hand-picked successor as President, Dmitry Medvedev. It was such a shock. I had no idea he was even thinking of me, I must say. But nevertheless, I do accept on my own behalf. And I would also like to further congratulate President Medvedev for a smooth transitional period that resulted in no additional deadness on his part. I find it comforting that I am in so much agreement with the new president, but perhaps it would be better to tell you about this in a song. Going proved too much for this man, too much for this man, so he's thinking, so I think I might have to go. Oh,
said he's going.
I said I'm going back to find.
Going back to find.
What's left of Cold War. Of what I left behind not that long ago. Oh no, yes I'm leaving. On the midnight raid to Georgia.
Leaving on a midnight raid.
Yeah. Said I'm going back.
Going back to Georgia.
And maybe start a war.
Who knows, you might just start a war.
And they'll be with me.
You know we will.
On my midnight raid to Georgia.
Midnight raid to Georgia. Woo-hoo.
They'd rather live in my world than not to be living in yours. Yeah, U.S. is dreaming. Oh, that I won't go too far.
He is not a czar, he won't go too far.
But George Bush will find the hard way that dreams don't always come true. Oh, no, they don't. So take a look in my eyes and you can see right down in my soul that you're never gonna stop. No, never gonna stop anything that I might do. Oh, no, you won't. Or I believe on a midnight plane to George Bush.
On a midnight plane.
Yeah, I'll try to convince the U.S.
Going back to
that I still can fix this mess.
The U.S. See if there's a way to fix it.
Yes, I'll pay a visit, yes.
We know you will.
And try to explain to George Bush.
Even Annie will explain to George Bush.
IQ that I don't mean the Georgia that is in the U.S. No, I'm not talking about your Georgia. Yeah, I mean, Georgia. Oh, you gotta love it. Capital Steps.
Memories, huh?
Great stuff. Oh, really. Now, my guess would be that there are any number of groups out there that have been pretty much relegated to occasional oldies tours who all of a sudden out of the clear blue sky start getting checks from you guys because you're using their music and maybe they haven't received a royalty check for decades, huh?
Well, this is all parody, and it's all kind of in that fair use part of the law. So it's,
so you don't have to pay royalties?
Actually, there's a whole Supreme Court case where people tried to pay royalties, and should they pay royalties because they changed the words, and it's all been so no, it's all considered a parody. Yeah.
Oh, well, then that makes the nice little cash cow you guys got going there, huh? Yeah, I like that. That's great. All right. As you have gone about putting together stuff, have you ever? We talked about things you did that maybe didn't go as well as you had hoped. What about things you wish you'd done? Looking in retrospect, were there songs that you just dearly wish you had done at a given time?
Well, that last one that you just heard was kind of one that we almost didn't do because the Midnight Raid to Georgia, at the time that the troops went into Georgia, where there was kind of this ooh factor, can we really do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And we have found that over the years, if you're making fun of the politician, if you're kind of poking fun at the people in charge, even, another example would be Hurricane Katrina. Wasn't funny at all, but you kind of have the whole Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job, and right. So there's always a politician in the middle of it. So usually we throw it out in front of an audience and see if they'll go for it, and.
They tend to. I mean, the shows, by the way, at the Reagan Center are fabulous shows, and I urge you, if you're in Washington, of course, the big tourist season's coming up, try to set aside part of your Friday or Saturday evening, go down and see the Capitol Steps. Again, you can arrange for that at the website capsteps.com. I don't get a cut for any of this, so it's not a conflict of interest, although, in fairness, and I believe that Elena will back me up on this, that one time we ran into each other at National Airport, and I threw out some line at you that you actually thought was funny, and you used it.
Do you remember what it was?
No, I can't remember what it was now. That's the really tragic part. But at the time, I remember you saying, "We'll use that." I said, "Well, go ahead." And I thought,
I wish
sure.
I could remember because lines.
But
come
you actually did use the line. I remember.
Lines come back into like we had a line that we used to use in the 80s. It was, how do you start a small business in the 80s? You start a big business and you wait. Well, that's now more applicable than ever, right?
Yes.
So there are jokes that come back. If I can remember what your joke was, I might be able to bring it back.
Because, by gosh, I remember I was really proud. I thought, no, they can't take that away from me. More to come here. We're going to hear some more from their latest Capital Steps CD, Obama Mia, and learn more about this whole business of being funny, because they do it, and they do it exceedingly well. More to come on the Jimbo Hannon Show. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Barack Obama, and for the next 4 years I'm going to be your president, and I realize that I may take some getting used to. For one thing, I speak in complete sentences. And another thing I'm known for is soliciting the opinions of a wide range of people. So, just to prove how open-minded I am, I've invited our former president, George W. Bush, to come by so that I can ask him a question. Welcome, Mr. President.
How's it going, Brock? Hey, can I call you Rocco?
No.
Well, I just want to let you know I got all my stuff out of the White House. Everything's out of the Oval Office. Everything's out of the library. I'm just kidding. I didn't have anything in there.
Well, I assume you mean library, but anyway, Mr. President, I have to ask, how did you manage without a BlackBerry?
I assume you mean Blackberry.
Nope, I mean BlackBerry.
Oh, well, there's plenty of other options. There's strawberry, blueberry, Frankenberry.
No, I mean your PDA. How did you stay connected? How did you stay in touch?
Well, if I proved anything during my presidency, it's that keeping out of touch was kind of my forte. Besides, who wants the interweb if you want to stay incommunicado?
Does this mean you won't send me emails?
I won't forward you dumb jokes.
You'll never IM to supporters or fans.
I'll just play World of Warcraft for most of the day.
I remember when Palm Pilots got much lighter.
Is that like a typewriter?
My BlackBerry's a must. I'm a tech gadget guy.
Well, I just got a Bluetooth. How high-tech am I?
But you got it from eating a blueberry pie.
I don't spend time flossing anymore.
You seem a bit outdated.
Email is overrated. Though to fix our economy, I look for hints. I just never heard back from that Nigerian prince.
I'll explain again. Press P for program record.
You mean P on my keyboard?
With my BlackBerry, I'll work from meetings and cars.
Email Scarlett Johansson and Hollywood stars.
But reception is bad. Do you have any bars?
You know I'm not drinking anymore.
Now they've said I can keep it if emails are few. With my BlackBerry I'm bringing changes, it's true.
Do they make a Whiteberry for Caucasians too? It's keys.
I will be stroking.
You're hooked.
It's true, no joking.
Addictive, just like smoking. Even more.
Inspired stuff right there. That's the Barack Berry cut from the new CD Obama Mia from the Capitol Steps. Is there anything you guys haven't done? I mean, you've done road shows and you've done off-Broadway. I mean, I don't know what it would be.
Bar mitzvahs, you name it.
Sure, halftime of the Super Bowl. I mean,
that we haven't done. Because we haven't had a wardrobe malfunction. Yeah. You don't want to see that on the Capitol Steps.
Oh, I don't know. We could talk about that.
We haven't done never done nudity. No.
Well, what's wrong with you people? Come on. There are whole new areas to explore here.
What your radio listeners don't know is that you're nude right now.
That's true. As a matter of fact, it's true. Except for the silk top hat. That's right. There's a visual that'll stay with you. Yes, indeed, right through to breakfast upchuck time. Now, but are there any projects that you've not undertaken? I mean, I don't know, a bit part in a movie. I mean, just.
Oh my, Capital Steps, the movie, we would love it. But what we've actually found that a lot of our stuff is showing up on YouTube, like bootleg, from shows and stuff.
Oh, I'll bet it is.
And what's really funny, too, is that some people have started to redo our songs on YouTube and put them up. And there's kids that say, like they're soliciting, do you know any more Capital Step song I could record? They're recording them, putting themselves on YouTube. It's like...
That's proprietary material.
But it's fun. We love getting our stuff out there.
Well, it's out there, okay. It's called being ripped off, isn't it?
No, we don't. It's all we're a live performance group. We'll take all the we'll expose ourselves as much as we can.
Fair enough. All right, Elena Newport, founding member of the Capitol Steps. Their 29th CD is out now. Very funny thing called Obama Mia. Learn more on the website capsteps.com. I'm Jim Bohannon. This is Westwood One. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One Radio. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626, and on the web, there we are at jimbotalk.net. And certainly great thanks to Elena Newport from the Capitol Steps for being with us in the preceding hour. What a delightful group and a lovely lady Elena is. And their latest CD, their 29th Capitol Steps CD, is called Obama Mia. Really funny stuff on it, as always. And you can find out about what they do and where they do it at the website capsteps.com. First hour of the show tonight, we had an Earth Day debate between Stephen Malloy, the author of the book Green Hell, and Sean Miller, who is with the website earthday.net. And they, as near as I could tell, did not agree that the sun rises in the east, but we'll leave that open to further interpretation. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626. At jimbotalk.net, we have, among other things, a jimbotalk.net poll, an unscientific poll, but kind of a fun little get-together. We just ask questions and get your response. For example, we asked a bit about what the president's next move against the Somali pirates ought to be. And your responses were 4% said nothing, they're not likely to attack a U.S.-flagged ship again anytime soon. 42% said he should authorize the U.S. military to conceive and execute a plan to wipe the pirates out. 54% said that President Obama should collaborate with other nations since the pirates are still holding others hostage. So that's the kind of stuff we bring up. And this week's question, President Obama has called for a new beginning to relations with Cuba. And that's in response to an overture from Cuban President Raul Castro, or at least 8 bars and a sonnet. So is it time for the U.S. to abandon its half-century embargo of Cuba? And your choices are, should you choose to accept this mission, no, it has been a time-honored and effective method of isolating Cuba, or yes, the embargo is an outmoded policy in a 21st century world, or let's wait and see just what Cuba does next before the U.S. abandons such a long-standing policy. Just go to jimbotalk.net. Click on that thing, all right? Also, we got a Jimbo Near You segment on the web, and we're going to be near you in Ames, Iowa, coming up on Saturday, the 2nd of May. I'll be addressing the annual Iowa Broadcast News Association convention. I'll be their keynote speaker. And we will also take part in a talk radio panel that they're going to be holding there. I'm looking forward to seeing Dr. Jeff Stein and all the crew from the IBNA. On the 7th, Thursday the 7th of May, we'll be broadcasting from the Mansion in Branson, Missouri. That's where Peter Pan is currently playing. And it'd be good to get back down and see our good friends at KWTO in Springfield, Missouri. Have a chance to resurrect discussions with Bonnie Bell and Chuck Booms and Ken Meyer and all the crew down there, Dan Vaughn. And again, that'll be at the Mansion on Thursday night from 9 till midnight Central Time on May the 7th. The Bohannon Show originating there. Pretty good cast of guests. We'll tell you who all as that list is finalized. Then on Friday, May the 15th, I will be the guest speaker at a special dinner, never forgotten, a dinner in tribute to the Gold Star families. Those are families who have lost a loved one in service to our country. It'll be on Friday, May the 15th at 5:30 p.m. at the First Assembly of God Church in Manteca, California. That's on 486 Button Avenue there in Manteca. And I take that as a very serious obligation to do the best I can in speaking to that gathering. You can find out more by calling a number. Daytime would be a better time probably to do that, but the number is 209-825-0123. 209-825-0123. But I'll address the Gold Star families at a dinner on Friday, May the 15th, 5:30 p.m. in Manteca, California. So all of you listeners to KSTE in Sacramento, we hope that you can come on down and whatever other affiliates I've overlooked. When you got 500 stations you're on at one show or another, it's easy to overlook them, but we hope that you can be there for that address on Friday the 15th of May. 1-866-50-JIMBO, that's this number hereabouts. Odds and ends in the news. Well, let's see here. There's always controversy over what sports are and are not included in the Olympic Games. Okay? Now there is a petition drive that is nearing 2,000 names backing inclusion at the 2012 Games of pole dancing. I can't wait to watch the officials place the gold medal inside the G-string. It could be a different kind of pole dancing, is what I'm guessing. I don't know about that. We'll do a little research on that. You've probably heard of the concept of beer goggles, right? You've heard of beer goggles. The more you drink, the prettier the women tend to look. Okay, well, guess again. A British university study asked drinkers and non-drinkers, and by that I'm talking about they've actually had a few drinks here, to rate pictures of women overall. The drinkers found the pictures less attractive. Maybe they should have conducted the study at closing time. I don't know. They tend to look better then, too. Memo to Daniel Duran of Houston. If you're going to hold up a bank, remember that bank tellers often stick exploding die packs in with the cash. So it's probably best not to stuff the cash down the front of your pants. But then you and your badly burned private parts know that now, don't you? Yes. Yes. Oh, mercy. Oh, my goodness. I'm a soprano. Oh, let's see here. With gold prices pushing toward $1,000 an ounce and lots more folks out of work, California reports land rush business now on prospecting permits. No kidding. A new gold rush in California's Sierra Nevada foothills right now. Spring snow melt is underway, and the streams are said to be running fast right now, making this the best time for prospecting. So get your donkey up there, I guess. Huh? Yeah, that's right. This will be the 09ers, not the 49ers. Exactly. Well, there's one estimate, and I'm not sure how informed this estimate is, but one estimate is that the gold rush of 1849, left about 90% of California's gold in the ground. So there could be stuff up there. Hey, it's up, around $1,000 an ounce. I mean, that ain't too shabby. And I love this story. I love this story. It isn't just anything that gets a royal warrant of appointment, but there is a new one that has been issued in New Orleans. And pretty soon, the words, "By appointment to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II," will appear on bottles of her favorite condiment, Tabasco hot sauce. I did not make that up. The Queen loves hot sauce and gave it a royal warrant. Is that cool or what? All right, 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626. We will take a little break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at something that has flared up in the news today. So stay with us here at Westwood One. This is the Jim Bohannon Show. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. Delighted to have you with us on the program tonight. Oh, by the way, if you hadn't heard, apropos of our question on JimboTalk.net, the poll question about the U.S. policy toward Cuba, Fidel Castro has now spoken up. He says that President Obama misinterpreted his brother Raul's remarks about the U.S. It's pretty hard to misinterpret them. Raul's statement was regarding a willingness to sit down and discuss things. What Raul said was everything, everything, everything. And that's pretty hard to misinterpret. That would include human rights, freedom of the press, expression, political prisoners. But Fidel, you've got to remember, really digs political prisoners. He really does. And he would be the first to say so. It would take him 4 hours to do so, but he would say so. And he bristles at the suggestion that Cuba should free political prisoners or cut taxes on dollars people send to the island. So you got to say this about Fidel. He's consistent. He is consistent. He grew up as a person who admired Hitler and Stalin, and not much has changed. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number. The Senate Armed Services Committee has released a new report which details what they say is a paper trail from the Abu Ghraib scandal, leading from the low-ranking soldiers involved right straight back to the Pentagon. And correspondent David Martin has more.
The report refutes in detail the contention that Abu Ghraib was the work of what then Deputy Defense Secretary Wolfowitz called a few bad apples. Low-ranking soldiers like Lindy England committed the abuses, but the Senate Armed Services Committee released a paper trail leading back to the Pentagon.
This report shows the direct connection between the policy decisions and legal opinions made here in Washington and the abuses that we saw at Abu Ghraib.
July 2002. Pentagon General Counsel William Haines requests information on coercive methods used to train American pilots in case of capture to resist interrogation techniques such as slapping, stress positions, and waterboarding, which was once prosecuted as a war crime. December 2002. Defense Secretary Rumsfeld signs a memo approving many of the techniques, but not waterboarding, against suspected al-Qaeda operatives held at Guantanamo. Rumsfeld subsequently rescinds that memo, but that does not stop the same techniques from showing up in Afghanistan.
The authorization for the use of these aggressive tactics went directly to Afghanistan.
September 2003. Again relying on the outdated Rumsfeld memo, the command in Iraq adopts interrogation techniques which one general said appeared to condone depravity and degradation rather than humane treatment of detainees.
Rumsfeld has consistently denied anything he did led to Abu Ghraib, and he has accused Senator Levin of, quote, wasting taxpayer dollars and to make unfounded allegations against those who have served our nation.
David Martin reporting there from the Pentagon. So that adds to the current discussion regarding the whole issue of what is or is not torture, what is or is not permissible, what should or should not be used in the war on terror. It's interesting that there doesn't seem to be any direct linkage here noted between the higher-ups and some of the more sophomoric stuff that was pulled with the dog collars and all the rest of that. It seems to be a tie-in to what is a general, overall permissible view that anything goes, when, of course, in fact, no one ever said that anything goes. And some of the stuff that took place at Abu Ghraib obviously was people who needed supervision, who lacked it. And frankly, it's hard for me to see all that much substance here in what Senator Levin has come out with. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626. But it does, of course, rekindle the entire discussion about just what is or is not permissible in a time of war. And beyond that, of course, what is or is not legal or illegal. Because if you are going to prosecute, you must have a violation of law. The mere fact that people do things you don't like is not sufficient for a criminal prosecution. If you want to go into hearings and have just a general all-around witch hunt, well, go for it. If you control Congress and you can use the subpoena power, that's well and good. But if you get into an area of legality, you must have a law which is absolutely broken before you can proceed any further along the legal front. That's the way we do things, and it is so inconvenient, I know. That's why Fidel Castro hates that kind of thing. It's much easier just to go after people you don't like. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626. Mike calls in from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Mike, good evening.
Hey, how you doing, Jim?
I'm well, sir.
Good, good. I want to comment on the torture thing. I just want to make a comment before I ask you that, or actually tell you about what I think. But I just want to say, because last night I heard one of the soldiers called in. He was in Vietnam, and if you remember, he said that that when the Vietnamese had him, they actually took pliers and ripped his teeth out.
Yes.
I mean, I tell you, when you hear stuff like that, you really got to appreciate and really love our soldiers, because, you know, we're in our houses, we're enjoying toast and eggs and yogurt, and we have all these freedoms for now. And these soldiers are what makes it possible, along with what our forefathers put together many years ago. But when you hear stories like that, gee, what they go through, and they fight, the way they fight for us, and a lot of times shed their blood. I mean, we really owe a lot to them.
Yes, we do, and unfortunately, we don't take the time to thank them as you are doing right now, as I am going to be privileged to have the opportunity to do at that Gold Star Families Dinner out in California next month.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, too, there's something else that I also note that you say, which is true and unfortunate, and that is we and they. We thank them, not that we would ever deign to actually be involved in something like this, because, of course, we don't care to share any of those burdens. That is an attitude that sickens me, but it's it's one that we're going to have as long as there is no universal service in this country, and it turns our soldiers into mercenaries.
Yeah, and it's amazing, too, Jimbo. Another comment to piggyback onto that is that, and to think that we actually have people in this nation that are so stinking ungrateful, they're so anti-war, and they don't have a stinking clue about how our soldiers have to continue to fight to maintain the freedoms that we have is just an outrage.
Well, you know, the thing that we overlook, I think, so often on this is that I am opposed to war that isn't necessary. But unfortunately, what these people fail to realize is that they're making a big war more likely, and they fail to realize that. Mm-hmm. I mean, World War II. Many of the deaths were directly attributable to Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, who appeased and appeased and appeased Hitler, and then suddenly, too late, realized that he had simply emboldened the man. So
right.
You got to keep that in mind.
And hey, I wanted to comment then about the torturing. I think that, first of all, you have to consider the people that we're up against. As you know, there have been Taliban or Al-Qaeda members that have actually beheaded our soldiers and have actually shown that on the TV stations over there, like Al Jazeera. And you know, when you're dealing with those type of people, to understand the magnitude, torture, I would say it's not only necessary, I mean, you must do it, especially to save American lives.
Well, I don't know that it is necessary, but I'm simply saying that I cannot consider it out of hand. I would certainly think of it as last resort, but in certain circumstances, it may very well be the last resort, and I simply cannot throw it off the table as saying, well, civilized people don't do that. Well, civilized people do what is necessary to save civilization. Mm-hmm. Not as a first resort, but as a last resort, yes.
I mean, when you consider that if the person you are questioning knows information about a possible definite plot that is going to take place, you have got to get that out of them, and you got to do it. I mean, it just has to be done.
Well, of course,
if that involves torture, that's it.
If it comes to that, yes, absolutely, and I certainly, as I say, would think of it as a last resort kind of occurrence. But yes, I do not leave that off the table. Again, we have people in this country who live in a dream world, and I don't like this world either. But I'm not going to pretend it's a different kind of world. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626, and more calls to come here. on the Bohannon Show, as we talk about a discussion that is not going away anytime soon, certainly, and it does directly relate to our conduct in what is a war. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that want to consider it sort of a police action, and we'll just call the United Nations police and call the International 911. Well, you can't do that. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Jimbo Hannon Show at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. We have a call from Bill in Springfield, Illinois. Good evening, Bill.
How you doing, Jimbo?
I'm well, sir. Good to talk to you.
I'm curious, as it concerns this torture issue, why there haven't been any voices over the last about 40 or so years since the creation of the Air Force, that people haven't been outraged by SEERS training. Are you familiar with what that is?
Well, it's the type of training
survival,
that the military...
survival, evasion, resistance, and escape.
Yeah, I underwent a variation of that before they had that formal name, but yeah, I had to be imprisoned at a make-believe prison camp, and I was recaptured and had electrodes attached to my body and stuff like that, and interrogated. I'm familiar with the general concept, yes, but please go ahead.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously the assumption is for trainees going through this training that there is no lethal intent, which ideally, in a hostage situation or a prisoner situation, you're worth more alive than you are dead, presumably. And when you're dealing with folks that have operationally relevant data that your opposition is willing to torture you for, in this instance, I'm concerned that all of a sudden that there's an outrage concerning delivering this treatment towards folks that do, in fact, have operational knowledge that will save American lives, when we've got people that are volunteering to undergo this training as a method for performing the duties of their job. And I never heard any, and you alluded to this earlier in your show, I think. Mm-hmm. I never heard anybody express any concern about, you know, the DOD's mistreatment of military members or folks with operationally relevant knowledge that, you know, we shouldn't be treating our people this way, even though it was performed in the onus of preparation.
Yes.
I wonder, I mean, as a member of the media, have you ever heard that? Maybe I missed it.
I've not heard such. I consider such training to be, frankly, a very good idea. I mean, people have to be as prepared as they can be for the circumstances of being held by people who may have complete power over you and are willing to do anything to you. So any training that you can undergo in that regard, certainly I can't say I enjoyed my time at Fort Devens, Massachusetts in the winter of 1966, but I'd say it was good for me. I learned all kinds of things that came in handy in Vietnam, like snow camouflage and prevention of frostbite. And no, seriously, I did learn good stuff there.
I know, yeah. I'm sure that that frostbite training really did you a lot of good in the jungle. But, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious, but my point is that I'm concerned that the outrage is only sparked by the fact that this torture, as it is being labeled now, it's not legally defined that way, but it is now being labeled in a public lexicon as torture, when we've been doing this to our own people voluntarily and overtly. I mean, to the extent that, you know, training regiments are documented or people volunteer for it if they know what they're getting into. And there was never any intention from the people that were interrogating hostile forces to kill them. It was simply to extract information, to incite panic. And I mean, that's exactly what that training is about.
Yes, that's what both the training is about and the actual interrogation is about. You are correct, Bill. 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. This is Jim in Montpelier, Vermont. Good evening.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm well, sir.
I was just reading in one of the larger national newspapers today an opposing view entitled Interrogation Methods Work. And it's very interesting. Within these documents, there's a person named Abul Zobuda who actually somehow his quotes got into these documents. And evidently, these people that are captured are permitted by Allah to provide information when they believe they have reached the limit of their ability to withhold. In other words, these people that we capture, some of them may have stronger faith in Allah, and they may need a little bit more to get that information out. And this person goes on to explain that because of some of the lopsidedness, like take waterboarding, with some captives, it may take 86 sessions or so.
Or 183 or whatever the total
yeah,
was.
183. And what happens is they get to the point where they've stuck with their religious part, and then it's okay to give the information. I thought that was interesting.
I never heard that particular viewpoint. It somehow doesn't seem to square with the fanaticism that otherwise seems to go with that religion, but it is certainly a pragmatic approach, obviously.
Yeah, and I thought I'd bring that up to you.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. 1-866-50-JIMBO, our number, 1-866-505-4626 to Jacob in Richland, Pennsylvania. Good evening.
Hello, Jim.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to give you my take on this interrogation stuff.
All right, sir.
Now, the way I look at it, it's our president's top obligation to make sure that the citizens of this country are protected. And as far as I'm concerned, he has to do, and his administration has to do whatever it takes to give the protection.
That would be my take, yes.
And I feel if he doesn't have the stomach to waterboard somebody or to rough interrogate or sleep deprive or play rap music at 50 decibels, he doesn't have the stomach to protect the country the way it needs protected. And as far as I'm concerned, these people should just step down and let somebody in there that has the stomach to protect us.
Well, of course, obviously they're not going to do that. They campaigned on this view, among others, and they won on it, and they've got 4 to 8 years to pursue this. So clearly they're not going to step down. They believe that they're correct. I find it to be a short-sighted view myself, but for the moment that's apparently the way we're going to go. The Marquis of Queensberry rules for a knife fight, which I'm not sure necessarily works, but that's the way we're going to play it.
Well, it almost seems, Jim, like we're going to take a knife to a gunfight.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a good view, Jacob. In my humble opinion, I think you summed it up nicely. I think that is exactly the idea. But you can usually count on the terrorist groups to do something so egregious that ultimately the folly of this viewpoint will be shown through. They are their own worst enemy in that regard. 1-866-50-JIMBO, and we have Billy in Centralia, Missouri now. Good evening.
Hello there, Jim.
Hello there.
How's it going there?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Talking about that torture issue, I think we, waterboarding or just whatever it takes to get these people in line and to protect the country. I ain't sure, but I think I saw a terrorist lurking in my pasture.
Oh, really?
He's behind a cow. These terrorists are everywhere.
Well, then you have a serious problem. You can't very well hang no terrorist strips. You can't spray for them.
A huge threat to the country.
Well, they are a threat. I doubt that they're a major threat to your cow pasture, but certainly they are a threat, and it bothers me that to assume that the survival of our society has to be based on the notion that there is a rule book beyond which we will not go in the defense of the country, and I find a problem with that particular viewpoint, Billy. Anyway, I guess that's Billy's way of saying he's moseying on. 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. Let's go to Pablo in Arlington, Virginia. Good evening.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Very well, sir.
I just wanted to comment on the whole torturing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one thing that people don't realize is that this stuff hurts. And it's like although we got to do it to, save the country and help each other out and everything, but people need to realize...
Yeah, good evening.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Very well, sir.
I just wanted to comment on the whole torturing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one thing that people don't realize is that this stuff hurts. And it's like although we got to do it to, save the country and help each other out and everything, but people need to realize that the war isn't really out there. The war is also at home, too, with the bankers trying to take over everything.
Well, we're kind of tap dancing across topics here. I am certainly more than willing to and have on many occasions discussed various abuses within our economic system, but that's hardly the same thing as people who blow up buildings and cut off heads and hang bodies from bridges. It's not exactly the same category.
We gotta realize that we're in a fake war, though.
What fake war? What fake war?
People are trying to protect
what fake war are you talking about, Pablo?
Like we're in the whole protecting of America and everything, but we're getting ourselves into conflicts that we really shouldn't go to the extremes to get into.
Well, which conflicts did you have in mind?
Huh?
I said, which conflicts did you have in mind?
Like Afghanistan?
Okay, now Afghanistan. Let's talk a bit about Afghanistan, shall we? The country which harbored the Taliban, which was ruled by the Taliban, which harbored Al-Qaeda, which plotted and carried out the 9/11 attacks. We should have done what in Afghanistan besides going to war? Should we have sent a nasty note saying, please don't blow up any more of our buildings? What would you have done, Pablo?
See, that's just being
No, I'm asking you a question. What would you have done? You said we should not have gone to war, Pablo. You said we should not have gone to war. Last chance. Since we should not have gone to war, what would you have recommended we do, sir?
We should go and find the people that are truly responsible for this.
We did, sir. We asked for their extradition, and the Taliban refused, so we went in. What would you have done after they had said no to President Pablo? We're not going to hand over Osama bin Laden. What would President Pablo have done at that point?
I would have gone after the people that really planned the whole
And that would be whom, other than Osama bin Laden and the people right there in Kabul? Who did you have in mind, Pablo? Who did you have in mind, Pablo?
We could call these people the Illuminati.
Whatever. The Illuminati. Oh, my God. We've got ourselves an honest-to-God certified platinum line whack job. You know, Pablo, in part, we sell this program demographically, which is to say, not on idiots, okay? Thank you, but I must admit that a little comic relief. I thought we had all we were going to get from the Capitol steps, but it wasn't Al-Qaeda, folks. It was the Illuminati who blew up the buildings. What a dork. Dion in Cleveland, good evening.
Good evening. It's nice to speak with you, Jim.
Indeed.
Hey, I was at work, and we had the TV on, and they showed, I believe it was an ABC program. It was like 2020, one of those type of shows, and they showed the Prince of Saudi, the Saudi prince, one of his brothers, torturing a guy. They had him on the ground. They were shoving sand in his mouth. They then ran his legs over. Then they backed up and turned the tire.
You would never find this kind of technique ever approved by anybody at any level of the United States government.
You need to. These people have no clue what goes on in the Middle East. They are
People should be reminded of the death toll from waterboarding, which is 0%.
Yes, I mean it's ridiculous that these people are endangering us, and I don't know whether they realize it or not. But we the people, we need to speak up. If we're the silent majority, we need to be silent no more. I guess that's my thing is my father-in-law drives for Halliburton, which KBR, which they sold off, and he was a government contractor, and he has they have roadside bombs, over there. They don't care about human life. They'll scrap a bomb to a little child, and it's the fundamental issue is they have no regard for life. And we do, and they try and use that against us.
Oh, they will use it. Oh, I can guarantee you that this discussion that we're having tonight is a source of great laughter among these people, the way we squirm and turn about issues of human life. You are absolutely correct. More to come. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Jimbo Hannon Show, 1-866-50-JIMBO. We have a call from Melanie, who is in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Good evening, Melanie.
Good evening. I believe we're talking about torture this evening.
Or alleged torture, yes, that's correct.
Alleged torture. Well, as far as I know, we still belong and we still have signed that Geneva Convention. And we're supposed to stand behind our country, and I think that means that we're not supposed to be torturing people.
Well, of course, you have to define torture. I mean, you have to decide whether or not, in fact, waterboarding is torture. You have to decide whether or not various practices are or are not. And frankly, the Geneva Conventions really haven't kept up with the 21st century, either in regard to techniques of interrogation or treatment of people who don't wear uniforms and fly flags and serve a nation state.
You are true on that, and I think that the United Nations should be stepping up.
Well, the United Nations hasn't stepped up to much of anything besides humanitarian aid for its 60-year existence.
No lie, and it's our kids here in the United States who are fighting for our country, who are paying for it. And it should be the world who steps up together. Well,
I agree with you that that's what the world ought to do, but unfortunately we don't live in a world that behaves that way, because far too of the 195 countries in the world, a significant portion are not ruled by the peoples of those countries, but are ruled by leaders who have no responsibility to an electorate, even if they go through the motions of pretending there's an electorate. There are far too many Fidel Castros out there on this planet. Is he ever going to die? Is that clown ever going to croak? My God. Here is Jim in Jackson, Mississippi. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. I'm a former Fleet Marine Force corpsman that participated in the same conflict as you did.
That would be the Vietnam War.
Yes, sir.
All right. And welcome home, by the way, but go ahead.
The idea of torture, I just don't understand. The object of the game is to obtain information, such as, where's your base camp? How many men do you have there? What sort of weapons do you have there? Do you have anything heavy? How much food is there? Now, we'll call them detainees. A dead detainee is worth absolutely nothing.
True.
I said a dead detainee is worth absolutely nothing.
Yes, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we discovered something in the field quite by accident, that the people we were dealing with have no concept of Western medicine. And there are certain rules to a field interrogation. And the gunny would, once the guy got a little bit panicky or whatever, the gunny would tell me to take his blood pressure, puts a collar on his arm, and tighten it up. Then he'd begin to squeal like a pig. Tell us everything we wanted to know.
Taking his blood pressure? Why? What was it about taking blood pressure, which is a purely painless procedure?
No, the idea was, yeah. But they weren't familiar with Western.
You mean they were frightened of a blood pressure test?
Scared to death.
I must confess I missed that one. That's very funny, Jim. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back here at Westwood One.
I wish I could go back to college. In college, you know who you are. You sit in the quad and think, oh my God, I am totally gonna go far.
For the past 5 years at Boise State University in Boise, Idaho, the newest residence hall has space for faculty and their families.
It's a bridge between student life and academic life.
Boise State's Assistant Director for Residential Education, Melissa Wintrow, who adds the professors aren't there as a nanny.
Faculty won't do the crisis management and the day-to-day operations of the hall. They're really working with the learning in mind, whereas the resident directors are trying to figure out, how do I create an environment where that learning can take place?
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to get in?
There basically was like a 5-day process that felt a lot like the job interview I had to go through when trying to get a tenured faculty position here, but it was through the Student Affairs and Housing program.
Assistant Professor Dr. Michael Humphrey.
I live in the same type of accommodations that my students live in.
Isn't that kind of cramped?
Residence halls have become more like apartments. My students have an apartment where they have a kitchen and a bathroom, and then that's what me and my wife and child and Labrador Retriever have.
You have a dog in your dorm?
What we had to do is go actually provide proof that our dog had gone through obedience training.
Yeah, but it's all the comforts of home.
The only thing that we haven't been able to do is set up a garden.
Boise State now has 5 professors living in this particular student area there, this residence hall.
After they are selected, they commit for a 2-year time period. Some of them actually want to go on for 3 years, so we do have a reapplication process.
Student Samuel Lounsbury lives in the same building with Professor Humphrey.
I get to learn more from professors, and I know how to treat other professors by just interacting with him.
Like maybe going next door to borrow a cup of quiz answers. Who knows? Interesting concept anyway. By the way, you think that Earth Day isn't catching on. I mentioned this during our first-hour interview, but at next month's Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR race in Concord, North Carolina, the pace car will be a Toyota Camry hybrid. And if you think it can't move, NASCAR driver Denny Hamlin has already run the pace car through its paces up to 110 miles an hour. Although the extension cord is a problem. Now there's no extension cord. It runs well. Okay, that wraps up the Bohannon Show tonight, and we thank you for being with us. And thanks to our producer and webmaster, Mr. Paul Hill. You'll find us at jimbotalk.net. Log on and be cool. And Zach Akey's our engineer. I'm Jim Bohannon on Westwood 1.